This is probably the introduction to the afterlife that Carolyn Bryant Donham received on Tuesday. Welcome to hell, motherfucker! You want to be in the original or the extra crispy section? Now available in paperback. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the darkness of eternal night. Get your copy of Eternal Night at online booksellers today. Hell finally got a new resident when Carolyn Bryant Donham died on Tuesday. Now, Carolyn Bryant Donham was the white woman who orchestrated the murder of Emmitt Till in 1955. Now, back in 1955, 14-year-old Emmitt Till went down to Mississippi from Chicago to go visit several of his family members. And as he was visiting several of his cousins in Mississippi, Emmitt Till decided to stop into a candy store owned by Carolyn Bryant's husband. And as he was in the store buying candy with his cousins, Carolyn Bryant possibly identified Emmitt Till as not being from Mississippi, and you targeted him to be the pawn in her crap test that she was planning to orchestrate on her husband. Now, Carolyn Bryant, after seeing Emmitt Till, decided to pull a crap test on her husband to see what she could get him to do and what she could get away with. And her plan was to try to see if she could get her husband to go out here and participate in first-degree murder. And she did this by making up a lie, according to some reports, that Emmitt Till had allegedly whistled at her. And in other reports, she had told her husband that Emmitt Till had assaulted her. And in another report, Carolyn Bryant also went out here and basically orchestrated the murder of Emmitt Till with clear malice aforethought. Again, in all three cases, she basically created the whole situation that led up to the murder of Emmitt Till, and did this with all malice aforethought and cruel intent, because this was all about her seeking to see what kind of attention she could receive, because she was feeling insecure and inadequate about herself, and she thought that by going out here and seeing if she could get her husband to go out here and commit murder, that she could still be the center of his life. So basically what Carolyn Bryant was doing was using Emmitt Till as a pawn, and thought that she could get away with the murder of Emmitt Till because he was a child from out of town and nobody would miss him at all. That was the initial plan of Carolyn Bryant's whole crap test as related to his murder. And those two simps, Roy Bryant and her brother-in-law, decided that because they wanted to get the attention and approval of Carolyn Bryant, they would submit to her absolutely depraved request and go out here and try to get the southern kind of justice on Emmitt Till. And this was the motive for murder that Roy Bryant and his brother-in-law had for going to the home of Emmitt Till. And as they went to the home of Emmitt Till, they were going to get their retribution for any allegation that Carolyn Bryant made, and bring this boy to an undisclosed location where they beat this boy, blinded this boy, castrated this boy, and tortured him before shooting him in the head and throwing him in the Tallahatchie River with a cotton gin attached to his neck. This was the so-called Southern justice that Roy Bryant and his brother-in-law believed was justified as related to Carolyn Bryant's allegations, and this was the actions they believed were justified as related to defending the honor of a dishonorable white woman. And in the aftermath of the murder of Emmett Till, what happened was the white supremacists down south decided to go out here and look to support Carolyn Bryant. And they went to support Carolyn Bryant to the extremes that they basically refused to even arrest her, showing me how gynocentric the system of Jim Crow was, because the system of Jim Crow went to extreme lengths to defend the honor of the dishonorable Carolyn Bryant, because the sheriff had the arrest warrant for Carolyn Bryant all the way back in 1955, but refused to even enforce that arrest warrant today in 2023, before her death. So Carolyn Bryant was clearly seen as a person who was seen on the same level as Roy Bryant and his brother-in-law. They all were seen as participating in the first-degree murder of Emmett Till. But Carolyn Bryant evaded justice because all of the simps in the Southern criminal justice system refused to hold her accountable for her crimes. And because they refused to hold her accountable for her crimes, yes, they brought Roy Bryant and his brother-in-law to trial, but an all-white jury acquitted them. But what was troubling here is the extreme lengths that those in the criminal justice system down south went to defend the honor of a dishonorable white woman, like many of the other dishonorable white women down in Jim Crow South, who went out here and made allegations of sexual violence against black men, or made allegations of violence of black men. And this would lead to these men, these beta males, being so incited that they would want to go out here and lynch black men. And what happened to 14-year-old Emmett Till, a teenage boy from Chicago, was the same thing as a lynching. And this lynching was the thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back for many of the good, forgiving Christian black people, because those black people had enough and they decided to finally start fighting back in the form of the civil rights movement. However, over the last 60 to 70 years, Carolyn Bryant has evaded justice, and as she has evaded justice, the gynocentric criminal justice system and the simps who run it refuse to ever hold her accountable, and that is even in the aftermath of the white feminist movement, where all of these white females all bragged about how they wanted to be equal to a man. However, they never wanted to see equal accountability for Carolyn Bryant, who had gone out here and again orchestrated the murder of Emmett Till. No feminist has ever gone out here and demanded that Carolyn Bryant be held accountable, even though there was a warrant for her arrest that never was enforced. And that really shows me how gynocentric the white supremacist system is, because they went to extreme lengths to go out here and protect this white woman, even though there were FBI investigators who basically said that she was just as equally accountable as Roy Bryant and her brother-in-law, as these as FBI agent did his investigation. Again, the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, does an investigation and finds that Carolyn Bryant is equally accountable, but we never see any sort of state or federal charges filed as related to the murder of Emmett Till, nor do we see any federal charges filed as related to Carolyn Bryant violating the civil rights of Emmitt Till. No criminal action done by either the state or federal government, and that is one of the most heinous crimes that this United States government has done in its history. This is the greatest travesty of justice as related to our government and our Constitution, because our Constitution says that we are supposed to be about making sure that people are supposed to be tried for their crimes, and instead of trying Carolyn Bryant for her crimes, what most of these white men in America's criminal justice system have done is sweep all of Carolyn Bryant's trespasses under a carpet and then tamp them under in order to make a smooth world, because they don't want to deal with the conflict and of having to hold this white woman accountable, showing the entire world how weak and hypocritical white men in America are, because you let this monster get away with murdering Emmitt Till. And as you let this monster get away with Emmitt Till, you basically showed how weak American men are, even back in the golden age of the 50s. You let this white woman get away with a murder of a black boy, and again, showing how little regard you have for a black boy's life, a black boy who never got the chance to grow up into manhood, never got the chance to live his entire life, and never got the luxury of justice, according to our criminal justice system, which touts itself as the fairest and most balanced in the world. That is the greatest travesty of justice as related to the Emmitt Till murder, is that Emmitt Till never got to grow up to become a man, and he never got to live his life and experience things like possibly his first date, never got to experience things like going to the prom, never got to experience things like going out here and getting married, or even passing on the lineage of his own family, because sadly Emmitt Till's father passed away in a similar tragic fashion. And again, the Till bloodline ended with Emmitt Till, and the saddest part is that Emmitt Till never got any justice. Meanwhile, Carolyn Bryant went out here in the aftermath of the trial where her husband and her brother-in-law were acquitted, and she went on with her life, and she went on in her life participating in the female nature that many men going their own way talk about. And in that female nature, this hypergamous female, after these males failed the crap test, quickly found a way to separate herself from her husband after he made the confession in Look magazine to bragging about the murder of Emmitt Till. And it wasn't that she divorced him because he confessed to the murder. No, she divorced him because he had failed the crap test she had instigated, and he failed the crap test by submitting to her absolutely absurd and ridiculous request to go murder Emmitt Till, because the crap test that Carolyn Bryant was playing on her husband was to see what she could get him to do. And because this beta male went out here and refused to set a boundary as related to this ratchet and raggedy bitch, what happened was that he went out here and participated in this murder, and he participated in this murder and failed her crap test. And after all the dust had settled from the trial, that's when she decided to participate in hypergamy. And she participated in hypergamy by going out here and monkey branching over to another man after she divorced him. And that marriage only lasted a year, but it allowed her time to go out here and regroup and find another simp to get involved with, because Carolyn Bryant basically was using her husband as a tool to go out here and live a level of lifestyle. And when she saw she couldn't live the lifestyle that she wanted, she orchestrated this crap test as related to her husband to get out of that marriage, because I believe basically this woman was never satisfied in that marriage, and she basically wanted to find a way out of that marriage. And the way she did it was just extremely heinous, as I see it, to orchestrate the murder of this teenage boy and have him lose his life, all because she was dissatisfied with the marriage she was in. And because she was dissatisfied, again, she went out here after the trial and divorced her husband, monkey branched over to one man, monkey branched after that divorce to another man, went out here and had children with that man. And again, after having children with that man and that marriage failing, monkey branched over to another man, and then eventually that third marriage wound up failing. And it basically, we saw Carolyn Bryant Donham turned into a bust down, even though I believe she was a bust down way before that. And she wound up living by herself all alone. And as she lived all alone, basically with her sons, she then looked to leech off her sons. So this woman basically was a monster from minute one, and she was the monster that America gave a pass to. And that is the great shame as related to this entire case. This American monster basically got away with murder, and she got away with murder because white supremacy wanted to give her a pass. And as white supremacy gave Carolyn Bryant a pass, she was able to go out here and live her whole life. And again, that is the greatest travesty of justice. However, over the course of living that life, it was the Most High who was the only one who meted out justice, because she did not live a happy life as she was out here crap testing and monkey branching. She was basically miserable, and she was miserable over the course of those marriages and divorces, because she basically had to live with the memory of the boy she murdered. And she murdered that boy all because she felt insecure about the men in her life giving her attention. But those men, there was no man who could please this woman, and then no man could please this woman because she basically was a demon. And she was a demon who basically made other people's lives hell on this earth. And as she made people's lives hell on this earth, the Most High made her suffer. And she suffered all the way to the point of living up to be 88 years old and having cancer. And now that she has left this world, she basically took a fall into the lake, towards the lake of fire, but she was caught by a couple of demons, and those demons right now are basically taking your Carolyn Bryant, and they're triple teaming her and spit roasting her. And as they're triple teaming and spit roasting her, they're making sure that her soul is suffering, even worse than the way she made Emmitt Till suffer in the short time that she was here on this earth. The suffering she is going to be enduring is an eternity, because I believe your Carolyn Bryant Donham was never repentant, and that is the saddest part of this whole case, is that this woman basically committed this murder of this boy and then went on with her life like it was nothing. Unfortunately, our U.S. government doesn't understand the treachery of these white women, nor the treachery of white female nature, because we saw an example of the treachery of white female nature with the whole case of Emmitt Till. This is what we saw transpire that most people aren't going to talk about outside of those in those men going their own way circles. Those men are going, they see the treachery of female nature with Carolyn Bryant Donham and see the monster she truly is. Now, there are people in the black community who have seen this and want to hold her accountable, but outside of those two social circles, many people aren't going to talk about how Carolyn Bryant Donham was a murderer. And while she didn't pull the trigger on Emmitt Till, she was the one who orchestrated the murder. She was the one who ordered the hit, and she ordered the hit the way many racist white women did during Jim Crow, by going out here and using a black man as a pawn to go out here and express their frustration about the state of their dysfunctional marriage. And because their marriage was dysfunctional, or their relationship wasn't meeting their needs, what they wanted to do was use the life of a black man in order to get this, white man to prove his love for a woman who never loved them in the first place, because this woman basically was hypergamous. She was trying to see what she could get away with, and she wanted to see what she could get away with because she knew that this man was weak. She knew that this man didn't establish any boundaries. This man wasn't a leader she respected, and because this wasn't a man she respected, she sent him out here to go take a life, and take a life that would lead to his life getting destroyed, and her having the opportunity to use that as an excuse to go out here and break up the relationship and monkey branch over to the spare white penis she already had lined up. Because that's what I believe Carolyn Bryant Donham was doing in the first place, because she basically didn't want anything to do with Roy Bryant, but Roy Bryant being a simp and having resources, it was convenient for her, and what she wanted to do was get away from this man. Now that she knew that all he was going to be was a candy store owner, she wanted somebody better. And again, Emmitt Till was the pawn in this whole situation, and again, just shows how much of a monster she is, because this is the way the American white woman in those days was like, and possibly still is today. And again, this woman basically got a sentence that I believe in eternity in hell, and she deserves every moment that she spends in hell, and she deserves to be spit roasted and triple teamed by as many demons as possible for the suffering she made Emmitt Till go through before he wound up leaving this world. And she just basically deserves an eternity of suffering, because this woman showed no remorse, even as her husbands and her brother-in-law were being put on trial. This woman went out here and lied on the stand. This woman basically went out here and willingly went and confessed to one person. And again, because our American criminal justice system is so gynocentric, it refused to punish this white woman. But this woman suffered at the hand of God for years with this cancer, and now she's going to be suffering in hell for eternity with these demons basically spit roasting her before they toss her body in the lake of fire to be consumed, where the worms don't die out and where there's lots of gnashing of teeth. And she will deserve to be in that lake of fire, and she will deserve to burn for all eternity. If there's ever anybody who deserved to be in hell, it's Carolyn Bryant Donham, and may she suffer for all eternity as I see it. Rest in hell, Carolyn Donham. You deserve every moment you spend there in eternity. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the East Dean series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can pick up all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about other subjects, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s with this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, 1987 at online booksellers everywhere.